Hello everyone. In this video, I'm answering a student's question on how to make custom rotary objects like you see here. So this one, he's trying to create custom three-dimensional knobs, and I show how to do this in Aspire and in VCarve. And these are done with very simple two-dimensional shapes, and then we turn those into 3D in Aspire. And then after that, I also show you how to do it in VCarve if you do not have Aspire. So let's get started. I'm going to create a new project, do rotary. We'll do a 4-inch diameter. So I always recommend to zero off the cylinder axis in the center. You can go wherever you want in the XY. As you go off one of the left corners, fine. And I'm just going to go along the X, but if you need to change that, you can. We'll click OK. So if we take, I'm just going to do a circle. But we'll just say, if we took a circle, say, I don't know, 3.5 inches will do it. If you need an oval, you can make an oval too, but I'm just going to show you like a real quick explanation how the process works, and then you can just adjust this size of the shape to whatever you need. But then the bottom, you can draw that something like this. Like I said, I'm just doing this a rough sketch here. And then we'll take these two shapes and I'm going to center them. See, my shape's off a little, so I'm going to move it up. Center that. And mine's not perfect, but you get the idea here. You'll have these two shapes and then you can select them too and weld them. And you actually should already have a shape that looks like this. And then what you'll do is go to the node edit mode by selecting it, click the letter N. And at the top, we already have a node in the center. At the bottom, we need a node in the center. So just right click on that bottom line. Don't click on the center, right click off centered of it and click insert midpoint. That will insert a node right there. And then you can right click on that node and cut the vector at the bottom and at the top. Cut, cut, and then delete the bottom half. And then that will leave you with half of the shape. Since you already have the shape drawn, what I would do is copy the shape and then split it in half. That way you still have the original if you need it for something. Okay, from here, if you have Aspire, you can turn this into a 3D model, and then you'll just do a 3D toolpath for this. If you have VCarve, then you can use the molding toolpath for this. I can show you both ways. Vectric already will create these rails on the sides here for using this for this exact thing you're trying to do. So since this is smaller, what you could do is grab this rail, hold Shift, select your shape, just make sure it's wherever you need it. I'm going to center it in the project. So I'm going to select this rail, hold Shift, select the shape. I'm going to use the alignment tool to align to the left edge. So there we go, that just moved that line. I'm going to select the line on the right, hold Shift, select our shape, and this time we're going to align it to the right side. And there we go, now we have our rails lined up with our shape. So if you want to do it in Aspire, I'm going to split our view so you can see both sides. You're going to go to the modeling tab. You're going to use the two rail sweep tool, which is the second one. You're going to select both of those rails, holding Shift, click use selection, and then select your half of your shape there, and click apply. And you'll see in the 3D view, that's all it takes. And then from here, you can do whatever else you want to do to it. And I also would add some type of tabs on the sides to hold it cutting free.
So I could just do this in the rotary project, actually?
Yep.
Okay.
And to add those tabs, all you have to do, there's already going to be a zero plane there. Just double click on that zero plane and give it some base height. And you'll see as you add base height to that, it's going to add sort of a tab there to hold your part. Just keep in mind it's set to the add combine mode. So right now it's actually making the part bigger as well.
Oh, okay.
You want them both switch to merge. So merge the zero plane and right click on the component one and switch that to merge. And that will keep the original size there. And there you go. Now you're ready to create some 3D toolpaths.
Kyle, how would I add another one to that center pole that you had? It's like 2 on 1 pole.
Yeah, you could do that. All you have to do is take this shape that we just created. You can just move it over, just slide it over here. Keep it centered on your project. So that moved it on the side there. And then if you hold the Control and the Alt key and drag it to the right, that's going to make a copy and keep it straight aligned. And you'll see, there you go. Now you got two.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
And now you can
Pretty
get
simple.
two at the same time. And actually, what I would do for that is mirror this one. Don't want to copy. I want to, actually, I'm going to delete that copy. Take the first one we made, go to the mirror tool. I'm going to create a mirror copy, and I'm going to flip it to the right. And what that does was we'll keep that spot there so you're not cutting real deep in between them. But I would make it probably a little bit wider, like with the width of a blade or something, if you want to cut it off later. However you want to do that, you can decide, but just to keep it from plunging deep, like you see if you have that gap in between, you're going to be plunging deep in there. Unless, of course, you make the this piece a little bit bigger.
Oh, bigger, yeah. Zero plane.
You can make a separate shape inside of there bigger to make that part bigger and then not affect the outside as well.
What's that split running through the middle? Will that show up when it's carved out, or?
Yeah, that might be because, oh, right there. You see, I didn't align that properly when I moved it. That's that little gap there. So what you have to do is just select that, use the alignment tool and align it top to bottom, and that will close that gap up. Now, there is a seam there because that's just where it joins, but it will not carve that seam.
Which tools do you recommend for that, Kyle? An end mill and then a ball nose to finish it, or
Yeah, you can
on the fly?
You can use an end mill for the roughing stage and then a ball nose to finish it up, or you can just use a ball nose to do the roughing and finishing. You won't need a very detailed ball nose for this. You can probably get away with a 1/4 inch ball nose. The only problem area will be in this area right here, but if you take a circle that is a 1/4 inch in diameter, you can see what that would look like carving that area there. This will be your 1/4 inch ball nose, and you'll see that's how close it'll get to that corner. So if you wanted it more detailed than that, then you'd have to use a smaller ball nose, but depends how detailed you want that part right there.
Oh, I see. Okay.
You can also use the rest machining to carve that with a smaller ball nose and carve the rest with a larger one.
So just to isolate that one area, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Rest, yeah.
If you want to just add a fillet in there, if you don't want that sharp corner, you could do that as well. And for you VCarve users, I'll show you guys if I hide all those 3D components and just go to the toolpath tab, you would draw all those shapes we looked at earlier, then go to the molding toolpath, select the 2 rails, hold shift, actually, sorry, not 2 rails, you only want to select 1 rail, then hold shift, select the shape that you want to put on that rail. Toolpath position, you want to, most likely you're going to want to put the gap at the bottom, the gap above. That way your part stays the exact size you want it. If this was a 2 inch diameter shape, you can see the cut depth is 2 inches. So it's 2 inches for half of the shape, so that'll give you a 4 inch total shape at the end. And then you're going to select your tool. So you can say we want to do a 1/4 inch ball nose, we'll do 1/4 inch ball nose, select. You can use a larger clearance tool. This will be like the roughing stage if you want to. I would recommend that in this shape because there are some deep areas. And you can also select the same tool to do the roughing as well. And you could change the step over on that. I would select the tool and then click edit and change the step over to more like 40%. So it carves a little quicker. And then you can ramp the plunge moves. And I like to leave a 0.04 machining allowance. And then click calculate. And you'll see that shape is in there. We have 2 toolpaths. This first one is the roughing stage. Second one is the finishing stage. You'll see if we preview the roughing, preview visible, it's going to preview flat first, and then it's going to wrap it. So we did have very step over selected, so it actually went a little smoother than 40%. So if you didn't want that 40%, you can adjust that. Also, you take notice, it is carving very deep in these areas. To fix that, all you have to do is go back to your drawing tools. I actually don't need this line on the side here. All you have to do is take a line wherever you want to stop it. Let's say we want to stop it right here. Just add a line there. And then use the scissor tool and trim that like that. So now it'll carve and come down to this level and stop there. You could do the same thing at the top if you wanted to add a little joint right there. And then trim there and there. And there we go. And then you'll adjust your toolpath for that. But you also want to make sure your part ends up the same size. So it's actually better if you take this line. I just undid that trim there. If you take this line and align it to the bottom, to where it's at the bottom of that half circle, and then select that line and use the move tool. And this time we can move an exact distance. So if we wanted a 1-inch part holding at the top, we would move that half. So we would do a relative move, 1/2 inch, click apply. So now this will be a 1/2 inch of material on the bottom, but since this is half of our shape, that means it'll be a 1 inch total. So if I use the scissors, trim that. Now if I go back to our toolpath, just keep in mind this sweep line will have to be adjusted as well if you want that in the same location. So just select that sweep line, select the shape, and align it to the left edge. So it just moved out to that new line. Now the toolpath, you're going to double click on that toolpath to edit. Select that rail and then hold shift, select our profile shape. And this time the gap below will be the exact gap that we moved that line, which in this case was a 1/2 inch. So that will leave us with the exact size part at the end. You can see now the cut depth is 1.5 inches because we took a 1/2 inch off the bottom of the shape. So now the height of the shape is 1.5, and then we're going to have an additional 1/2 inch gap below that, which would leave us with a total of 2 inches, just like we had before. If we leave all the other settings the same, the other thing you want to take notice is this boundary offset. It'd be good to leave it at 0 for this, so it does not go past these edges of the lines there. So now we'll click calculate, reset the preview, and preview visible, or selected rather. And this time it'll leave us with more meat on the ends where it's not cutting that part free. You can see, there we go. Now we have a lot more. We have a 1 inch diameter at the front and whatever we left up at the end on this side. And then the second toolpath will be the finishing part of it. You could preview that. And that's actually the one we changed the step over for, it looks like. Edit that. Yep, that should be 8%. For the tool, and the larger clearance tool, okay, I adjusted the wrong step over there. Larger clearance tool should be 40%. The regular tool should be 8%. Recalculate that. That should cut it much quicker. So now we'll preview that again. There we go. There's the roughing stage. It's a little bit spaced out farther, which is okay. And then the finishing will be a lot cleaner. Smoothing that out. And there you go. And that actually might cut faster than in the 3D toolpath. Sometimes you have to play around with those too. This sometimes will cut faster than doing it in 3D. The only benefit of doing it in 3D is if you wanted to add like additional 3D objects on top of this. You wouldn't be able to do that as easily with VCarve. You can draw some text. That would only be for the spire because you have to project that onto the 3D model with that option down the bottom. But technically this is not a 3D model, this is just a toolpath. So that option will only work for a spire.
That's all for this video. Make sure you like and subscribe for more. And if you want to master your Vectric software, make sure you check out my Vectric training classes linked right here, where we go much more in depth how to use the Vectric software step by step. And included with my training courses is weekly Q&A calls where I can answer your questions one-on-one and get the support you need. And if you want to watch another great Vectric tip, check out this video posted right here.